Thank you, Mr. Morelli. I'm going to recognize myself to ask some questions. Chairman Steil, can you please respond to the claim by our Democrat colleagues that this bill is unnecessary because it's illegal for non-citizens to vote in federal elections? We hear that constantly. Now, I want to be clear about this issue.
Thank you, Chairwoman Foxx. Sometimes there's a lack of distinction between whether or not an act is illegal and whether or not that law is enforced. So it is currently illegal under federal law for a non-citizen to vote in a federal election. Of course, there's jurisdictions such as our nation's capital that do allow non-citizens to vote in local or municipal elections. The focus of the Save America Act is to actually enforce the law by requiring citizenship verification at the point of voter registration. We know under current law that the check to determine whether or not an individual is a citizen of the United States is incredibly weak, which is why we have seen individuals either intentionally violate the law or inadvertently violate the law, in why the underlying bill in front of us, the Save America Act, is so essential.
You've already touched on this, but I'll ask you to expand. There are cities in the U.S. that permit non-citizens to vote in elections, as you mentioned, D.C. If that's the case, does this framework and through these processes allowing non-citizens to vote undermine our confidence that non-citizens cannot infiltrate federal elections?
You bring up a great point. And so in a handful of jurisdictions across the country, I think the easiest example is our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. Non-citizens are eligible under current law to vote in local and municipal elections. Let's give an example of that. So if an individual is a Russian national, works at the Russian embassy in Washington, D.C., has a Russian passport in their pocket, under current law, they could walk out of the Russian embassy on election day, U.S. election day, walk to the ballot and cast a ballot. They would not even be required to show their Russian passport as identification because photo ID is not required in our nation's capital. States or localities that attempt to do this, the question then becomes, how do they maintain two voter rolls lists? This is something we've explored at the committee. It's one of the challenges we face. It's why we should ban non-citizens from voting in any election in the United States. U.S. elections should be for U.S. citizens only. And in particular, it's why passing the Save America Act is so absolutely essential to restore America's confidence that only U.S. citizens are voting in U.S. elections.
And one more quick question. Does the SAVE Act threaten democracy, as its detractors say?
It's one of the most ridiculous comments. If anything, it restores trust in America's elections, that U.S. elections are for U.S. citizens only. The question that I would ask to those individuals that make that claim is, how many illegal votes are okay? We heard earlier an example where there was only one case of fraud. The question, of course, would be, how many cases of fraud are you comfortable with? The standard for me is that we should have no cases of fraud, that we should have no non-citizens voting in U.S. elections. In my opinion, one non-citizen canceling out the vote of a U.S. citizen is one too many.
Thank you very much. Mr. McGovern, you're recognized.